Hello and welcome to the ThreeWill podcast. This is your host Danny Ryan, and I have Tommy Ryan here with me. How you doing, Tommy?
I'm doing well. Good
Great.
morning, Danny.
Good morning. Good morning. Top of the morning to you. Oh, what is that?
That's an actual shark eating my leg. So that color is my leg. And
Okay.
that's the shark's mouth.
Nice. Where'd you get those from?
Actually, Austin was donating that, or he was giving them to Goodwill, and I stole them.
Oh,
before I
no
went to
way.
Goodwill.
He was giving them away.
Yeah.
Nice. I've got the my second of the sock club, and this is
Okay.
called the Amelia Earhart or the Earhart or something along the
Okay.
lines of that. So.
Yeah. Very
They
cool.
give a nice little letter that goes along with it, an inspiring letter as you get it each month.
Inspiring socks,
Yes,
wow.
yes, inspiring socks. Today we're going to follow up with what we covered last time, which was our corporate values, and we talked about ThreeWill as being the first one and one of the most important ones for us.
Yeah, good place to start.
A good place to start. Influenced the name of our company, has had a big influence on us as we grow the team and as we go through the years and trying to find people who like to make the right choice and recognize our God-given power with ThreeWill. Next up, let's talk about responsibility. This sounds fun, huh?
I love it. I know.
We have Bruce Harple as being the person who we sort of associated with this on the website.
Yeah, great choice there.
And the statement for this is we are accountable to our decisions. And I'll just to get us kicked off here, I'll read what we have up on the website if you don't mind.
Go ahead.
We value an environment where people are accountable for decisions and responsibilities. To be responsible requires making and keeping commitments that help produce results. Being responsible is making conscious decisions in the space between a stimulus and response. A responsible person is in control of his life and is accountable for how he responds to everyday stimulus on projects for our clients. An important aspect of being responsible is proactively setting your own goals that are smart, specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and timely. ThreeWill incorporates goal setting into associates' professional development plans, but responsible behavior also comes from self-motivated individuals who are looking to add value to client engagements and internally at ThreeWill. Working with responsible people builds a high-trust environment and is instrumental to highly functional teams. I didn't get that all out in one breath.
I was going to say, it takes a couple of breaths to get that out.
Yes. Initial thoughts on this, Tom?
Well, I think it's one of those things that it's hard to do, and it sets a high bar in a sense. I think there's so many things that you're faced with in decision making and how you choose to structure your day to be responsible. I think there's things that are in that quadrant 2 that are important but not urgent that you have to do as a responsible person to have more effective interactions and impact to your customer. And I kind of see that with preparing for a meeting. Mm-hmm. A responsible thing to do is to review what you're going to do for that meeting, make sure you have a good agenda set, and that you prime everybody with what's going to get accomplished, so you can come into that ready and prepared to meet the objectives of the agenda or of the meeting. And that it's easy for us to just get caught up with just showing up for meetings versus being prepared for meetings. And that's just one example of responsibility.
I know for me, one of the things when working with prospective clients and new opportunities is creating our action plan, which is sort of a steps that we have towards making a decision, really. And with that, I think it has some of the aspects of setting a SMART goal, which is, it has a timeline involved with it. who's responsible for it? What are we trying to do? Basically, what do we need to get done in order for us to go make a decision as far as whether we should move forward or not move forward? And I think with those as well, it sort of gets everything kicked off with the idea of making and keeping commitments. And so you want it to be a seamless process for when we're talking to somebody about an opportunity and we say we're going to send them something tomorrow, we send them something tomorrow. And, it's just these little things that people end up seeing, and I think ultimately lead towards people trusting us, and is how trust is built in general.
Yeah. And it's easier said than done. I can tell you, lately I've been feeling overloaded with tasks that emerge, and every client wants to feel important, and they are. But then there's just pure physics of things that get on your plate and things that you need to get done. And so I think sometimes a responsible person, can make a commitment where they have to recommit, but that needs to come. In my practice, if I'm in that position where I can't get something done in time, I want to ask for an extension in a sense, and asking for that before, quote, the due date, instead of the customer saying, well, I thought I was going to get this, and you get an email a day or two later. That's kind of begging for forgiveness. I think it's good to ask for permission when you have commitments and you can't make those commitments. I think that's a way to look at responsibility when you are challenged with having too much on your plate.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Any stories that you might have, or just sort of looking back over the last 15 years or so, where we're talking about being accountable to a decision that was made? Any stories that sort of pop up? And I know I'm asking this somewhat on the fly, but anything, where we made a decision and we said, you know what, we're accountable to it and we're going to stick with this, and where it was maybe a difficult situation where we said we're going to stick with it. And you can pick a story where I'm involved, where I, or whatever, if there's something that comes to mind with this.
I kind of get numb to this because I think I see it all the time, and it's hard for a particular story to kind of, rise to the surface. I see it with, folks that, I see it in, Kirk is someone that I think is very responsible. I always feel like there's things that get on his plate, and Kirk will be very explicit of, okay, you just asked me to do something else. That's either this is going to drop or, the other thing is going to drop. And that's a hard thing to do when you're a people pleaser. And I think most people are. At the end of the day, people want to be affirmed that, people value them. And when you're in a situation where you're asked to do something that is going to be a challenge to get done, I think everybody here will do their best to get that done. And but there's certain people that will be very clear on what that impact is, and that's a responsible thing to do. I think it helps people around them to plan appropriately, so they know that, okay, there is an impact there, and I know right when it happens, what is that consequence. And that's the responsible thing to do. I think it's where it gets tough is with your clients, and where you're trying to, make sure what are the things I should indicate as risks, and make sure that they're well educated on decisions that they make and the impacts of those things. And so I see Kirk embodying that, making sure people understand the consequence of things. And he's, probably the person, one of those, everybody works hard here, but I see Kirk, when he gets into something and commits to something, a lot of times he'll have late hours and just he'll find a way to get to it and get it done. And, that's the spirit. And I think it comes through, him feeling responsible what are the things that he commits to.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. I mean, I'm working with him right now on a white paper, and he's very, very good at letting me know sort of where he's at and sort of what needs to go on next. And he's putting the content in a OneNote notebook so that I have visibility to what's been done. And he's very extremely responsible person. I think we all can learn from Kirk, definitely.
Yeah. And that takes hard work. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
that's so much discipline to say, all right, I'm going to do these things because they're important in to be able to capture and make decisions from. It's easier to step back and kind of watch someone take the notes, or watch someone facilitate the meeting. But we've got people that are so great at stepping up and making sure that we're actively participating in the things that we do with our clients, and being responsible for capturing notes, being responsible for getting the status reports out on a weekly basis, and all those things. Not everybody has those disciplines, and it's great to be surrounded by people that do that. I see, Bruce is on that page for responsibility, and it's because Bruce is one of those guys that helps us be accountable in delivery to making sure we're doing the things that we're committing to, and that's a big task to take on as the leader for delivery. And he does it by example. You see Bruce does a lot of the status reports, and he'll get those done, and a lot of times they come out late on a Tuesday night, and it's because he feels responsible to get that out there timely. He might have a long day, and he'll stack that on at the end just to make sure that the things that are urgent with the people he's serving in delivery are taken care of, and then he makes sure that his tasks are being done. And that's such a hard balance to be able to stay committed to not only your things, but supporting others that need your help.
Yep. I mean, I think I have a recent story
Okay,
that might
good,
come to
good.
where instead of, I think a part of being responsible is looking at reality and trying to take what you see as happening and making sure that everybody who's involved, all the stakeholders who are involved, are aware of what you perceive as being reality. And I think on a recent project, we saw that something was going in a certain direction. You're probably, I don't know if you're picking up on which project I'm talking about yet.
Did we talk about last time, I think, or earlier?
Yeah, we talked about it. Or you're late to this podcast episode because of it. But you ended up, basically saying we need to stop a project and spelling out. I think it was the responsible thing to do, to say, here's the terms in which we need to agree upon before we, move forward. Or maybe you tell me what was because I think it was a something that's difficult for us to do. We don't like, we don't like having to pause a project or stop it. How does responsibility fit into that? And
well, in that situation, as a consulting company, you want continuity of engagement.
Uh-huh.
So you usually like to set things up project-based. I mean, we have some agreements that are ad hoc, and those are great little fillers in between the projects. But at the end of the day, the lifeblood of a consulting organization is committed project-based work. And you do that in a way that you staff a team and a sizable team. It's probably 3 to 4 FTE equivalent team that's working on a project.
Uh-huh.
That we continue to communicate. There's an impact here. We need to have additional budget to do the things that are being asked of. We need to have commitment that these things should be done, that it's agreed upon. And we're working as a subcontractor, and we don't do that often. So, we're not able to, manage that in a way that we would like to do that. So we're trying to coach the team that, is going directly to the client and, helping them, make those decisions. But we got to a point where the decisions weren't being made. And at the end of the day, our true client is the ultimate client that's getting this service. It's not the one that we're subbing through. It's the ultimate client. So we went on pause. We lost time to bill, and we did our best to fill some of the time for those associates to be able to go on to other efforts, and usually mainly on a part-time basis. And waiting until the decision is made, and that way that client is not spending any money that they don't want to spend, and we could easily kind of do the status quo of continuing to bill and saying it's the client's fault because they haven't made the decision. We just decided we've got to pause because we need to be good stewards of their ultimate budget. I think that is a responsible thing to do. That's a hard thing to do. It has a financial impact. Yeah. It has a morale impact because people like to finish what they start. So when you pause those things, it puts those things in jeopardy. It mentally is hard to say stop because you're kind of in that mode of getting it done, and you don't want to lose continuity. But in some cases, you have to do that, and we don't do that often. I can't remember the last time we've had to do that.
I can't remember either.
A lot of times you put it out there as the consequence, and you give them heads up that this is the consequence, and then there's action, and we get that probably 99% of the time when we're dealing directly with the client. In this case, we're not, so our message gets diluted, and it just makes it harder. The people that we sub to, they have their own challenges, and it's easy to say, well, why didn't they do this? And so you try to work with them, you try to understand their situation, and you try to enable them to be successful with them doing what they need to do ultimately to allow you to re-engage. So it's a fine line. You're trying to play a little bit of tough love, but also be respectful along the way, and you're not perfect with it. You try to understand there's a human element to it, and so you need to have a lot of conversations and a lot of times one-on-one with kind of leadership to make sure that we're all on the same page, that we want to make this successful, and we're over communicating to understand the situation so we can get through it.
But let it be known, you have to know this. Tommy doesn't bluff. I'm glad you went through with. Also, I think there's a part of this where I think being involved with this, where you have to say we're going to do this, and then you do it, and I think that's an important part of it as well.
Right. Yep. It is. Sometimes it's easy to threaten something and then not come through with it, and. At the end of the day, that's as a responsible thing to do. You got to set where that line is, and then you got to commit to following through with that. And that's definitely a hard part of it. It's not. It sometimes keep you up at night when you have to make those decisions.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Tommy, for taking the time to do this.
Sure.
And we'll cover the next shared value next week. And thank you, everybody, for taking the time to listen. Have a wonderful day. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.